Thank you for joining us. We are still live in the Digital Innovation Day. Thank you to the ECLAC, specifically to Huawei as well for support, and the General Secretary of Iberoamerica who realized the president meeting, and the people at the ECLAC and Huawei for making this a reality. We have two big areas to talk about. The first one has to do with the economic recovery through IT in Latin America. And today it has something to do with something rather important, that is the ability to change the lives of people, the MSIs, and to change public administration from the governments. We can connect, but if there is no digital transformation, there will be no digital well-being. All the capabilities that the government has to provide fundamental rights and access to these technologies won't happen, especially because these are the tools that we have for the Internet of Things and AIs and whatnot. So today is a day of digital transformation, and I'm going to also thank the Ministry of Communications in Bolivia. So as I told you, this is about digital transformation, and I want to introduce a professional of everything that has to do with innovation and digital transformation in the government. This is María Isabel Mejía from the CAIF governance body. María Isabel, now the floor is yours. Jorge, thank you so much for the invitation and for this presentation. Would you like me to start with the presentation then? Ready. I'm going to have to prepare a presentation. So yes, we will speak of digital transformation of the state. More than to talk about the need of connectivity per se, as we know is a need, we will talk about all the processes that need to happen so that people that are truly connected can actually do so with the state to receive better public services and to truly have a better quality of life, which is what we strive for when we talk about digital transformation of the state. I'm going to talk specifically about a digital government project, and the strategies that we have, which began in Latin America about 20 years ago. So we've had 2 decades of implementation. These strategies were focused specifically in simplifying and digitizing documentations and any form of interactivity and red tape with the government. So there are many countries that have these forms of access, and we have created spaces of interaction and digital participation all over. And we've been implementing and deploying these strategies of data collection that are public in nature. And as I told you, the government has promoted these strategies of openness of data that will help not only society at large, but also entrepreneurs in the creation of applications for citizens, for researchers even, and for the public sector in general. So what have been the results of these strategies and what we have achieved in these 20 past years? Well, we have achieved better efficiency in public administration, better levels of transparency and citizens' participation. And due to the simplification of red tape, we have saved time and money to the citizenship at large. And we have here the most recognized index in terms of digital governance. And it has to do with the unit of development for social development, e-government development index from the United Nations, and this has been measured ever since 2003, and we have the metrics for those countries that are part of our association, CAF, since 2003 to 20. And in the gray bars, we see how it started in 2003, and in 2020 we see the pink bars. There are countries in which these 17 years have made quite the strides. Some of them, like Spain, the one that does the best in terms of digital government is Uruguay, but we also have Uruguay, Argentina, and Chile, which is actually better than Portugal. So those countries are close to being the leading nation, which at the time is Denmark. In 2020, in 2003, it used to be the United States, but there are several other countries that still have a long ways to go. Some of them have taken huge leaps, like Uruguay, for instance, since 2003 to 2020, made quite the strides. But there are others that still need to follow suit. And the region has several gigantic challenges that still persist and have become more serious as the pandemic ravages through. We have the things related to poverty, inequality, lack of trust in institutions, unemployment, climatic emergency, corruption throughout the region. And these challenges demand new forms of governance. And what we see is, and what we need as well, is more agile, open, and innovative governments that are and we have an opportunity in the intelligence of data and the new technology. And so we at the CAF believe that the governments of the region need to focus themselves specifically, because we've been working for 2 decades and there's still a long way to go. There we have still a few problems that didn't happen because unfortunately the citizens no longer believe in the state and they waste a lot of time in the red tape. So these four aspects need to be tackled, of course. Need to work on the whole red tape thing and to develop cross-cutting solutions. And we'll see that in detail to make the most of the data and emerging data and technologies, and to work on creating on skill building and creating talent to make the most of these to harness these innovations. And so we'll go and see each and every single one. When it comes to the digital services and red tape, we have a few that have been digitized, and there's countries that want to do that at 100%. And for instance, Brazil has advanced a lot in that. Denmark has done so already in digitizing their red tape. I don't know if all countries should actually shoot for that, at least for not 100% of it, because there's red tape, of course, that are not as impactful. So my recommendation is to make those that have to digitize those that have the most impact, to actually put them online. And the other part is to integrate them through a unique, through a sole website. Because what's been happening over the past 20 years is that every government entity created their own website and they digitized their own documents. And this disorder that we would find before in the real world, we would find it in the net. And the user doesn't really know what to go. And therefore, the unique or the solely integrated websites become very relevant. They become the sole site in which the citizens can go in and they can interact with the state directly. And of course, quality is important because there's red tape and documents that have been digitized, but many of them are not as easy to use. The technology that is being used is usually not updated or the best. We have digitized part of the document, but not the whole thing. So you have to work on the integration from starting point to endpoint. So that implies that the systems of information behind these documents must be digital as well, and they have to be interconnected with one another. And that, of course, includes to improve the user experience. It has to be a nice experience, to do to engage in red tape online. We need to also classify the use because it doesn't work if you just have the document there and people don't use it. So these strategies of appropriation have to be extremely important and put to the front. There is a lot to do in terms of modernizing our administrations. As I said, we started to do so many years ago, and we need to update it, of course, and we also need to push for interactivity so that and operations so that every state institution is no longer an island. They work as a continent and they are connected, which is a topic that I see with us and is just as important to tackle. And that is the importance of these strategies at a local level. There's a huge advancement in the national government entities, but there's still a lot to do when it comes to the territorial and local level government institutions. And when it comes to cross-cutting solutions, it doesn't mean that the entirety of the government has to do the same thing. No, you need to develop transversal solutions that serve every single person in the state, like digital identity, digital signature, emails, push notifications, everything that has to do with digital solutions. You know, like maybe the actual the in Colombia, we release what we call the digital portfolio, in which you concentrate all these documents that the state has from us as citizens. This third political axis is, which I believe is a priority in Latin American governments, is harnessing data and emergence technologies. We know that we have to work in connectivity, that we need to digitize all red tape, but there is a great opportunity in these emerging community like big data analytics, AI, blockchain, the Internet of Things. They're all there, so we have to begin to harness them and to create and bolster data structures and infrastructures. These infrastructures are the raw material in which from which the AI can eke out some form of results. So we have to create governance models for these infrastructures of data so that we can have quality data available that would actually help us to do what we want. This is what we call a take-a-driven politics sector. That is a public sectors that is pushed by data. Why? To depurate the way in which we do public policies and creating better infrastructure of data, but understanding what are the actual problems, the problems that we were talking about, everything that has to do with mobility in the city, unemployment, corruption, all of these problems. Through an analysis of the data, we can actually understand what are the problems and when they happen, where they happen, in which populations, in which sites, whether they're growing or decreasing. That is a way in which we can understand the problems and therefore we can create better public policies. And also the data help us in designing better services for for better solutions for the citizens that will reach them, and we have to become more proactive as well. We have to be that way too, and of course these technologies help us in improving the internal efficiency of the government in automating processes and becoming an ally of the public servant. I have a lot of experience in this. It is an initiative that was boosted by CAF, and what we're trying to do is to promote the use of data and AI within the public sector. We just reached a region. We just released a regional report that you can check on our website, and there we have cases in which the AI has been used in education, in health, to combat to corruption practices, embezzlement, injustice, and fiscal evasion, tax evasion. And I entice you to go check it out because it shows you how we can make the most of the data in emergent economies, but in a responsible manner through accountability in the public sector. The fourth axis that I believe we should focus the most, specifically the governments right now, has to do with talent or and skill building, and also the culture of innovation. We have to implement integral policies to create for skill building purposes at the digital level, but not only for specialist groups in IT or data or analytics, we have to do that. Don't get me wrong, but also in additional areas for user service, it is important that every entity of the state knows what technologies are used for, what the data is used for, and have these skills that they can actually harness. And of course, at an executive level, of course, the public administrators need to know how these technologies are being used and to boost the strategies of the development of human talents and harnessing of technologies. We also need to promote culture of innovation within the state. This is a process that needs to be promoted at all times. And of course, we have seen the proliferation of labs of public innovation in which we actually become one with the digital ecosystem. We promote that the state wouldn't work by itself, but we can work with the startups, with GoTechs that actually develop solutions for public problems. And why shouldn't we create alliances with the public sector and the private sector so that we can solve these public problems? So that they can become more agile. They do have the talent that they need, and they can become a magnificent allies for the processes of the public sector. With this, I finish my presentation, and I call upon you to more than just boosting digitization publics. We need to boost these processes so that the state can actually change and morph into something different and because so we can become closer and approach the users and citizens and improve their quality of life in turn.